unacceptable.
Ron Ward, you had a point about illegal weapons I'd like to bring you in on. Would you?
Yes. Is the illegal market bigger than the legal one?
Sorry, I missed that.
Is the illegal market bigger than the legal one?
Yes. I mean, you mentioned, Ian, about the licences that take place, but there is a big illegal market going on. I'm not suggesting British firms are doing this, but around the globe, there's a tremendous amount of it going on. So, can anybody ever stop this?
The size of it, as the questioner asked, I mean, which is bigger? I don't know. I think probably the illegal market is not as big as the legal market, that's for sure, but it is very big and significant. And I've personally seen weapons that have been made in the northwest frontier provinces of Pakistan, which are pretty good weapons, and they kill people. I've been fired at and captured a RPG that had markings on it showing that in Arabic script that it was made by the Fedai in Lebanon. This was back in the 70s. So backstreet workshops were producing pretty effective weapons, actually. And so the illegal trade and weapons that are actually banned, landmines, for example, give me a bit of wood and a bit of explosives, I can make a landmine. Most of the landmines killing British troops are actually improvised landmines. They're not legally produced landmines. They're just improvised devices. So it's very difficult to stop this trade in weapons. What we're trying to do with the International Arms Trade Treaty is to move it forward. And I think, rather like regulating drugs, you can't ban the drugs and hope they'll all go away. The reality is people will find drugs and they'll be on the market. What you've got to try and do is regulate that market and control it as best you can, in an imperfect world, as Patrick says.
So is this not back to Patrick's sort of realism, Simon? Yeah. Because if you stop the big companies doing it, then some little chap in a back room alley is still going to be able to do something that's going to do you a lot of harm.
Well, I mean, this point about the real world, I completely accept we need to live in the real world. And in the real world, we cannot engage in the arms trade without it having negative consequences. It's been accepted that, Britain sold weapons to what were then rebels in Soviet-controlled Afghanistan that then were turned against us. Britain armed Saddam Hussein against Iran and then ended up fighting him. And so to sort of write that off as just, a slight mistake does seem a bit unrealistic. I think what's unrealistic is underestimating the effect that the arms trade can have. But also, I think it's unrealistic to underestimate the difference we can make as people, the difference the world's people can make in terms of putting pressure on governments and pressure on companies and working for change. Somebody mentioned that Britain had achieved its power because of military might. That's partly true, but it's also a lot of what we have in Britain in terms of democracy and human rights is because people have gone out on the streets and campaigned for it. So I'll be realistic and not underestimate the power that you and I have to change things.
Let's see, Melissa, you've got a point you want to make. Melissa Woodside.
Just going back to what you were discussing earlier, is the power of the state and the arms dealers inseparable, and therefore is direct action an essential part of deconstructing international war machines?
It's got you written all over it, Richard.
It has actually, hasn't it?
Are you making any progress at all in your campaign?
Yeah, I think we are, actually. I mean, there has been, since the direct action focus shifted to the arms trade at Dicey, at the Excel Centre, there's now been a network of groups set up around the country who are taking on individual arms manufacturing facilities in their hometown. So there's certainly in Brighton we've got Edo ITT and so on and so forth. And I think this is an important part of the awareness, and I think unfortunately we do have to take direct action. I mean, it is fascinating that the moment you run across the state's agenda for arms manufacturing, the moment you run contrary to that, then you find yourself labelled a domestic extremist.
But within the law, or having to break the law a bit, or...?
We've all had our brushes with the law, haven't we? We've all had our brushes with the law, haven't we?
Define that.
Well, the law's the law, isn't it?
I think there's times when... I mean, most of my campaigning has been within the law. I think...
Most.
But I think that sometimes it is morally justified to break the law. I would say that should never be an excuse for violence, which is why I'd only get involved in direct action if there's a strong commitment to non-violence.
But then you say, Simon, it's morally acceptable to break the law, but not morally acceptable to pay a few bribes. I mean,
yes.
You can't have it both ways.
I can.
I would say it's morally unacceptable to do either.
Well, of course, we can have I'm glad you accept it's morally unacceptable to pay bribes.
Absolutely.
He said to do either, to be fair. He said to
Come on,
do
Patrick,
either.
I mean, you're a lawyer as well as a politician.
Well, that's perfect.
Well, absolutely. So, I mean, do you accept you can pick and choose which bits of the law you want?
I'm not saying
Of course you
Yes,
are.
yes, yes.
That is the language of the extremists through the ages. You know, I'll obey this law because I approve, but I'll disobey that law because I don't approve of it. What I'd like, I think, possibly, what would be the effect? I mean, let me ask that. What would be the effect if, as a result of your direct action, whatever, Britain was not involved in the arms trade in any way? Do you think that is going to stop one single war abroad? Do you think it's going to stop one single
Might stop a
bullet? Do
bombing
you think
on the
it'll
tube.
preserve one single life?
Well, let's stop.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it might stop a bombing
Yes.
on the tube. I think if we weren't involved in this ridiculous adventurism in Islamic countries, then, yeah, we wouldn't be radicalising a domestic population.
well, let's-
so, yes, I think it would, yeah.
Well, we're going to try and end on a positive note anyway. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Once again, if you'd like to be part of the audience here in London, please call our hotline on 0208 728 6472 or send us an email at forum@presstv.co.uk. From me, Derek Conway, it's goodbye until next time.